Hello, everybody. It's 4 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of June, and it's drinking time. I don't know about you guys, but this has been one of the oddest weeks I can ever remember. It's been super challenging, both mentally and emotionally. It's just been a draining week at work, and then everything else that's going on in the world today. um, Honestly, I'm an old dude and I've been around for a long time and I've seen a lot of stuff, and this is the probably one of the worst weeks I've ever experienced in my life. There was an Iran hostage crisis and the gas crisis in the early 70s. I remember that when I was a kid. Didn't really understand what it was all about, but I remember the implication for my folks and for their friends and their family and stuff like that. It's just a super weird time as a country, right? And then the dot-com bubble in 2000, I was actually down in the valley and I saw that firsthand. I saw friends going from Ferraris on one day to the breadline on the next day. Super, super impactful, super tough. And then 9/11, holy crap. I mean, what do I say about that? I remember exactly where I was. I remember watching it live on TV, and I remember one of my friends having to explain to me what just happened because I didn't, it just didn't, it didn't register. Um, it was such a surreal thing, right? But we came together and we rallied, and then two wars in the Middle East, one of which we may never get out of. You had the financial collapse of 2008, and all the horrible things that came along with that. We've had swine flu, we've had Ebola virus, but this last week, I feel like we're being attacked internally and externally, right? Externally, we've got this global pandemic, this virus that no one can really control. And internally, it seems to me like our souls are being tested. They're being ripped apart by racism in this country. And it kills me. It tears me up inside, right? And all I really have is this meme that probably all of you have seen as well. It's this goes out to all of my friends of color. You matter. Your life matters. Your experience matters. Your story matters. Your opinion and your culture matter. I see you. I hear you. I value you. I grieve with you. I believe with you. And I am with you. And so I think we could all use a good drink after this week. So we've got two drinks this week, and these are really riffs on week one. So week one was Old Fashions. And this week, one of the things that we did early on is we did a couple drinks to kind of set you up to make a bunch of different types of drinks. Old Fashioned was one of those drinks. Old Fashioned is really simple. It's a bourbon or a whiskey, or it's a whiskey, it's a bourbon or rye. Usually something sweet and something a little bit bitter, right? So we're going to start with the maple Old Fashioned. For those of you that don't like peanut butter and jelly, because that's really the focus of today is Steve's Old Fashioned peanut butter and jelly, and I'll tell you the story about how I came up with that. But the maple Old Fashioned, people have been making this one for a long time, and it's super simple to make. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you guys down a little bit so that you can kind of see what I'm doing on the cutting board here. Let's get out of the glass. Okay. So the first thing we're going to make is we're going to make like I said, the maple Old Fashioned. Super, super easy to make. I'm using rye. I suggest use a rye with this because we're going to be mixing this with maple syrup. That's going to be our sugar, and that's going to be super sweet. Rye and the spiciness of the rye usually makes it balance out a lot better than, let's say, if you're just going to use bourbon, which tends to be sweeter. I like this Basil Hayden's 2x2. It's one of my favorite ryes that you can have. Oh man, it's got a good smell. So, like all of our drinks, if you haven't had a type of a whiskey or a type of an alcohol that you're mixing with something, it's a good idea always to try some. So I'm going to try a little bit, which is really unfair because I've had this a lot before. So for a rye, it's super interesting. It's got a nice spicy kind of a, not a cinnamon, maybe like an allspice kind of a flavor. It's got a longer tail, like you can feel it going down. So it's got a longer tail than your typical rye. But it's super good, super smooth, super great for mixing. What we're going to do is we are going to, in a glass, we're going to get a big ass ice cube. And we're going to put 2 ounces of rye in this. Okay. There's my rye. On top of that, we're going to add our maple syrup. And this is where you can kind of get creative. I go to Trader Joe's for a lot of stuff. They've got this really nice vanilla bean maple syrup, which is super tasty. If you like something with a kick, though, this stuff is super good. It's this Vermont ghosted maple syrup. It's got ghost peppers in it. This stuff is a kick. So every once in a while, I'll make myself one of these. Super spicy if you like spicy drinks. Really super good. But we've got 2 ounces of rye. We're only going to use 1/4 ounce of this maple syrup. Okay, we don't need a lot. Just need a little bit. Super thick. Okay, there we go. Use 1/4 ounce of that. Look at that. It just like cuts that thing right down. Okay. We've got our regular bitters. Oh, geez. There we go. A few dashes of bitters. Maraschino cherry. I like to take a little cherry juice, just a little bit. Put that in there. And I'm going to mix this bad boy up. I'm going to use little cherries as a garnish in there too. Okay. So that is your maple old fashioned. Super easy, right? It's just an old fashioned. We're just using maple syrup as the sugar. You know, so super easy to drink. Super easy to make. Really tasty. The rye pairs really well with that maple syrup. It's a good drink. I'm still a fan of the regular old fashioned with my Demerara over this, but it's super good and it's a nice change up. Well, that's tasty. So there's that one. Now for kind of the centerpiece of this particular episode, which is Steve's Old Fashioned PB&J. So this is weird. I think it was about last November or so. I was at Total Wine. I go to Total Wine to get most of my booze. I was at Total Wine, walking up and down the bourbon aisle, and talking to the bourbon guy there. I was looking for something particular. I think I was looking for some type of an aperitif or something. I couldn't find the right aisle. So I was talking to the bourbon guy, and we started talking about flavored bourbons. He's like, oh, yeah. It's like, I've got a buddy. He just got this. He pulls up a fifth of Screwball. He's like, he just got this. We just got this in like a few weeks ago. It's peanut butter flavored bourbon. I've got a friend who like swears by it. He says the best thing. And I thought to myself, that's got to be disgusting, right? I love peanut butter. Peanut butter flavored bourbon does not sound like a good thing to me, right? And immediately my mind started turning like, okay, what could I make with this? First of all, the fact that there was a peanut butter flavored bourbon blew my mind. I had to buy it just because. And it's not cheap, right? Most flavored bourbons are like around $20. Screwball is about $30. So, you know, it's the same price as, let's say, Buffalo Trace, right? So it's not a cheap flavored bourbon, right? But like, dude, I had to try it. I mean, come on, it's peanut butter flavored bourbon, right? I grew up on peanut butter and jelly, right? So I grabbed some and I immediately started thinking, what can I make with it? And my mind immediately went to old fashions, right? And I thought, what if I took an old fashioned and replaced the sugars with something that fit in here and figured out how I could use the peanut butter as a bourbon. And that's where this whole thing came out, right? It was just kind of an attempt to make something cool out of peanut butter bourbon, right? Because I had no clue. Now, having done that, like this is a really good drink. And we're going to talk about some of the variants of the peanut butter, essentially peanut butter and jelly old fashioned as we move along here. But, you know, you shouldn't start one drink without finishing the one you have in your hand. So let's finish this maple old fashioned. That's tasty. So, I told you guys in the direction this week we're muddling, right? So, I like strawberry jam. So I was thinking about this stuff in my head, like what can I do? How can I make this thing taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Well, didn't really start like that, but I'm like, okay, I need some strawberry jam, right? So I have a couple different things. Okay, what am I going to use for the sugar in the old fashioned? Okay, and I found this strawberry liqueur, right? It's just Drillheads. It's a pretty inexpensive one. I think it's maybe about $20. And it'll last you forever because you won't use hardly any of it, right? And I'm like, well, if I mix that with an actual strawberry, muddle the strawberry, right? Because usually in my old fashions I use some oranges or cherries or both. That'd be super good. So I grabbed some strawberry, right? Said, okay, I'm going to muddle that bad boy. Let's go ahead and muddle that strawberry up. So fresh strawberry. Let's take it, muddle it up into a nice strawberry paste, essentially. See that? Kind of like strawberry goop. Perfect. Okay, next thing we're going to do, after we muddled it, we're just going to put in a big ass ice cube. If you guys haven't gotten big ass ice cube molds, I highly recommend it. Get the silicone ones that are easy to pop things out with. You can get a mold of like 8 cubes on Amazon for like, they're under $10. Or you can go to any liquor store or Total Wine or Bevmo or whatever, they have them there. But they work really well. And the nice thing about those big ass ice cubes is they actually last long in the drink since they've got a bigger surface area than the littler ice cubes. They actually last a little bit longer and don't dilute the drink as much. So we've got our muddled strawberry. We've got our big ass ice cube. This is where you guys are going to have to feel this recipe a little bit. My recipe calls for 1.5 to 2 ounces of peanut butter bourbon and 1 ounce of regular bourbon. Now, some people really like the peanut butter bourbon. And by the way, so this is my screwball. It doesn't come in this little baseball decanter. I just have this and I put the screwball in it. But if you haven't had it, oh man, it smells like peanut butter. If you've never had this, I highly recommend you go out and get some and just try it. Like if you like peanut butter, you're gonna like this. Like it's actually just drinkable. You could drink this on ice. It's super sweet though, so I'm not sure I would do that. But having made this particular drink a lot, I've kind of dialed it in. This is one of my boozier drinks. Aside from the Vesper, actually a lot of the drinks I've made are pretty boozy. But what I tend to use is I'll use 1.5 ounces of Screwball, the peanut butter bourbon. By the way, when I went to a Total Wine a couple weeks ago, they had like 4 or 5 different flavors of peanut butter bourbon, right? That range from like $12 to $30, right? And everything in between. I haven't tried anything but Screwball. There may be something better out there. So obviously there's a market for this stuff now, but you should try it. So I'm going to use 1.5 ounces of peanut butter bourbon. Okay. I'm going to do equal parts of peanut butter bourbon and regular bourbon. So I'm going to use 1.5 ounces And this is Buffalo Trace right here. A little Stormtrooper decanter. Got 1.5 ounces of that. Okay. I have found that with this, so we got to use the strawberry liqueur, right? So we've got the muddled strawberry. This is going to be our sugar, right? So this is going to replace our simple syrup. Or, in the last drink, we used maple syrup. So this is going to replace that. So we're going to use 1/2 part of strawberry liqueur in here. There we go. That's probably a little bit much. Okay. And again, this is just Drillheads. It's, for pretty much any kind of, the flavored liqueur, I use this to make all kinds of different flavors. But it's really good. So we've got our muddled strawberry. We've got 1.5 ounces of Screwball peanut butter bourbon. We've got 1.5 ounces of Buffalo Trace. We have 1/2 ounce of strawberry liqueur. And now we're going to use orange bitters in here. Okay. Get a little bit more citrusy flavor to kind of balance out a lot of that sweetness. We're going to add a little bit of citrus to that, right? We're going to mix this bad boy up. That's the stuff, man. So with this drink, like I said, when you're drinking it, you'll probably want to play with the mix between the peanut butter bourbon and the regular bourbon. When I first started making this, I was using 1.5 to 2 ounces of peanut butter bourbon to 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce of regular bourbon. And it's super peanut buttery. But that got to be a little too sweet for me. So I use equal parts peanut butter bourbon and regular bourbon. Some people like a little bit more strawberry. So I use 1/2 ounce. You may want to go 1 ounce of strawberry liqueur, but that might be a little bit too sweet. I know a lot of people probably don't like the sweetness. And so in that case, I go, let's say 1.5 ounces of regular bourbon to 1 ounce of the peanut butter bourbon and stay with 1/2 ounces of the strawberry bourbon. Strawberry liqueur. And the orange bitters is way better in here than the regular bitters because that citrusy part of the orange bitters actually lights this thing up. Little strawberry juice there. But this is the freaking closest thing to a liquefied peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I've ever had in my life, other than actually putting one in a blender and blending it and eating it because I was hammered. The cool part about this, though, is that you don't have to put the thing in the blender at all because you've already got this. And if you drink a couple of these, you're probably going to be hammered anyway. So you're all good. So, a couple different variants on the Old Fashioned this week. We had the Maple Old Fashioned, 2 ounces of rye, 1/4 ounce of maple syrup. Some of you might like it a little bit sweeter. If you do add a little bit more maple syrup, don't be afraid. Go to 1/2 ounce, go to 3/4 ounce. But the maple syrup is way sweeter than simple syrup or like Demerara or anything we've used before. So kind of add it in stages, I would anyway. So 2 ounces of rye, 1/2 ounce or 1/4 ounce of maple syrup, 2 dashes, 3 dashes, 4 dashes of bitters, and then some maraschino cherries to top it off, right? In a big ass ice cube. You could use bourbon. I've used bourbon with this before. Bourbon's actually really tasty. The thing about bourbon is remember, bourbon's a sweeter alcohol than a rye, right? And so you're going to get that sweet bourbon with the sweet syrup, maple syrup, and it might be too sweet for some folks, right? So that's why I typically use rye. With rye, you get those nice spices. Typically, rye are a lot spicier. And those spices mixed with the maple syrup really, I think, pop for me. So that's a super easy drink to make, right? Steve's Old Fashioned Peanut Butter and Jelly. Super simple. You're going to have to bite the bullet, though, and get some peanut butter flavored bourbon. I use Screwball, but like I said, last time I went to Total Wine, they had 4 or 5 different flavored peanut butter bourbons there, which surprised the heck out of me, right? So I use equal parts. I do 1.5 ounces of peanut butter bourbon, 1.5 ounces of regular bourbon. I'm using Buffalo Trace, but you can, it's dealer's choice there. Half an ounce of strawberry liqueur. I use the Drilleds. 4 or 5 dashes of the orange bitters, and you make that over a muddled strawberry. It's amazing. Now, there's a variant of this that you may want to try. My buddy Brian Weber actually likes this version better, where instead of using Drilled strawberry, they actually have a ton of different types of flavored liqueurs. And they've got a blackberry one. And if you use the blackberry liqueur with actual blackberries to kind of simulate blackberry jam, it's pretty damn good, right? I like the strawberry version a little bit better. My buddy likes the blackberry version a little bit better. You make them the exact same way. You could try different things, like maybe you like raspberry jam, right? That's your favorite jam. Get raspberries and get a raspberry liqueur. Trust me, they've got a flavored liqueur for just about any kind of freaking berry you can think of, right? But it's super easy, right? Equal parts, 1.5 ounces of peanut butter liqueur, 1.5 ounces of bourbon, half an ounce of the berry liqueur. I use strawberry, 4 or 5 dashes of orange bitters, muddled strawberry, highball glass, big ass, ice cube, drinky. Oh, man. I needed a couple drinks at the end of this week. Like always, I suggest you drink on an empty stomach. I think it personifies the flavor and really gets you going for the weekend, I think, in this case. But take care, everybody. It's been a tough week. It's been a really tough week. I won't deny it. I don't think any of us can deny it. We're in a weird place. All I can say, though, is there's hope, right? There's going to be a good side to this. We're going to come out of this thing better than we are now. And that's the best part about this country that we live in, right? And for my buddies that are overseas that are watching this, I know you guys are watching our country and saying, what in the hell is going on? We'll fix it. We'll get right. Don't worry. It'll just take us some time. And we need to do some soul searching as a country, I think. But we'll get it done. I am a firm believer in that. And to all my friends of color, just know I'm with you. I'm with every single one of you. And I love you all. And with that, have a drink. Next week, I think I may go with something a little bit more complex. My niece's boyfriend hooked me up with an aviator. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. And I created a bastardized version of an aviation. It's a gin drink. It's super good. An aviation and a Vesper, which is super good, super boozy, but really amazing. So we may kind of jump the shark next week and get to that one. And half of you are like, oh my God, Steve, that's amazing. Half of you may say, Steve, yeah, that's a little too much. But we'll figure it out. Again, I'll post stuff Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Go out and buy your stuff. And with that, God bless everybody. Take care. Be careful. And love your brothers and sisters. Cheers, guys.